Thank you, folks. It's 4:09. If we can call the meeting to order, I'd appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's here. You confirmed attendance. Let's do the roll call, please. Mike Cruz is here. Claire Edelman Heath.
Present. Hello.
Anthony Garcia. Present. Claire Johnson. Thank you. Carla McCord.
Here.
Matt McGrath.
Here.
And Chris Darrow.
Here.
Thank you. Upcoming events. As noted, our usual reminder to check Flag 365 for upcoming events in music, culture, art, and sciences. That's a regular email. Hopefully everybody gets it and looks at it. And then attends as they are able. Kristen?
And then for the May 1st Friday, we invite all of you to come to the community art exhibition sponsored by BPAC and learn more about the Flagstaff regional planning process and the artworks that it generated. That'll be at 7 p.m. at the Heart Box. And there will be a brief talk by artist Sonia London Hall, who's leading that creative process. Friday, May 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Orpheum Theater. It is the opening evening of Art X. And Donna Walker-Kuhn will be speaking. She's a national expert in audience development, so we'll see more information there. May 17th is also the opening reception of the Multicultural Park Sculpture Exhibition. So that begins at 9 a.m. With opening remarks. And then from 10 to 12, there will be an open house. You can learn more about the artists, experience their artworks, etc. And then May 24th, there will be a Coconino scroll ribbon cutting ceremony and tour, and times will be determined. So stay tuned for more information. Number 5, the Regional Plan Committee continues reviewing draft chapters for the Flagstaff Regional Plan 2045, which marks a crucial stage in the development of the plan. Participation at this juncture is extremely valuable. And Commissioner Garcia has further information if needed, and dates are noted.
The last concert of the Flagstaff Symphony Orchestra for our season is on Friday the 12th from 7:30 to 9:30. I still have some tickets I'm dying to get rid of. I brought 6 with me tonight. These expire at the end of this season. And I'm rotating off the board, so I won't get them again. If you'd like to go, I'd love to give them to you. Wine reception starts at 6. Wine is $5 a glass. There's free food, and the show starts at 7:30. Let me know if you want tickets. Anybody, again, I'd be happy to give them away. Otherwise, you're going to be useless and trashed.
I just saw Claire commented, I'm guessing Johnson, that she would love 2 tickets.
Claire, I'd be happy to give you tickets. Can I leave them with Kristen and you can pick them up from her? Great. I'll leave 2 for you. Thank you. Enjoy. Moving forward to public participation. Do we have any?
I did not receive any.
Then we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to look at the minutes of the March meeting? Are there any questions, comments, discussion? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll second.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been moved and seconded to approve the March minutes as submitted. All in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Thank you, Carlos, abstaining. The motion carries and the minutes are approved. I appreciate it. Moving forward to announcements.
So we have a staff announcement. Interviews for the Collection, Beautification, and Public Art Project Administrator position will occur on April 18th, and there are 3 candidates. I will move in to the next staff announcement, which is the experience of the Viola Awards. And so Beautification Arts and Sciences, along with 2 of our commissioners, Councilmember Sweet and Vice Chair McCord, had the opportunity to attend the Viola Awards. It was a fabulous evening, and I was hoping to have some photos, but I was not able to get them off of my phone to share with all of you. So if anybody wants some, I can give you. If anybody else wants to just share their experience about the Viola Awards, feel free to do so. But it was a very memorable evening.
It's 100 times stronger than it has been in a couple of years. In particular, somehow they managed to keep the audience from talking over people, which has been a real issue for the last few years. It was a lot more enjoyable. I thought they did a really good job. So, and Becky did a great job.
I was Josh 3 years ago.
I'm talking about it. That might be a good time.
Yeah.
I was seeing good.
Yeah, we were at the photo booth.
Having fun.
I think that we were well represented and that felt good to have a lot of city and BPAC.
Anthony, you want to talk to us about the number 3, Sunnyside?
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Sure.
Sunnyside Neighborhood Association is continuing their visioning process. They're kind of marrying it or mirroring it to the regional plan. The reason I wanted to bring it up to BPAC is I think since we have a line item coming up, it would be important for maybe even staff or at least commissioners to show up. Now, we don't have any dates because things got a little wonky in April, but I'll be letting you guys know as soon as we have some solid dates. And I think this process is going to be it's going to take part in 3 steps and it's going to go throughout the summer. But it would be nice to have, where the money lies as far as the beautification of public art is concerned, mixed with the neighborhood itself and have some of us in the room with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Sounds like an important thing to try and attend if we're available. The next one, we went to Phoenix and won an award and it was super fun. It was the same night of the Violas. It was just a lovely event and had a really good time. The artist sat with us and her husband, and he won, I think, 2 awards, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it was a really special event, and we got a bunch of pictures. Jenna's got them all. I think she shared a group photo, at least one. I think,
I
which
was
is
trying to put that up on the screen.
Yeah. Are you taking one selfie? So it was really nice. It was good to hang out with folks. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say it was great to receive the award of note. And it was sort of fun because Habitat for Humanity also was an award winner and they were at our table.
Right.
And the artist has mentioned 2 more. I think there were 5 total trophies sitting on our table by the time it was done. We felt like we had kind of won the
whole
all the
thing.
gold medals.
Yeah.
And it was a great group. So
Beautiful, it was special.
hopefully we'll win again someday for too long.
And what was the award for?
For the library.
Oh,
Library entryway, it's a landscape, I believe there were the sustainability and the inclusivity aspects, right, specifically. So congratulations to the commission and to all those involved.
The city of Flagstaff.
Where's your photo?
Are there, oh yeah, there's the photo. We look so great. It was
Will
fun.
you send that to me? I want to.
So are there other commissioner announcements? Council member, do you have any announcements?
No.
Moving forward to the action items. The first action item is consider recommending for public vote the art concepts of the Cheshire Neighborhood Asphalt Art.
That's me.
That's you.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good. How are you today? Show thumbs. We don't have to go straight down the line. Take up too much of your time. Again, I'm Kaylee Quick. Thank you.
Just advance this slide.
Great. I'm in control. I'm here representing FALA's art program and David Hamburg with the designs that we've created for the Cheshire Asphalt Mill project, which is very exciting. We just got finished with them on Wednesday, and here we are submitting them to you for your approval. So I wanted to go over the process a little bit with you first, and then we can get into the designs and what they look like and some of the concepts featured within them. I've taken a couple of photos and put in this slide. A couple of weeks ago, we went and walked the actual path with the students that the mural is going to be going on. It's about 7,000 square feet. And this was a fun process because they really got to see the scale of what this means. It's one thing to look at it on a map. It's another thing to actually see what each of these tiny little designs represents. And then we went back to the classroom and we did some critiques on their final designs. We've been working on their design projects for maybe about a month. Oh, they can't hear me. What if I speak louder? Use my teacher voice. That help?
It's a
I can
little
hear you
better.
well.
Okay, cool.
So the mics are these things, just FYI.
Let me go back to where I was. So we've been working on these projects with the students for a while now, and we have done it in several phases where we initially discussed the focus group, we discussed public art and what that looks like, and the process that we generally go through for calls for artists, etc. We worked into our thumbnails, our rough drafts, and then their final drafts of the design. And so some photos are just us kind of going through and critiquing those works with them, and then we were able to gather all of their designs together collectively. Dana and I decided that based on what we received, that we would go ahead and utilize their ideas and drafts to create a little bit more of a professional composition. We only had one student that created a composition that would really work to implement the design. Many of them kind of struggled with a little bit extra detail work, which is common for artists when we're trying to teach simplicity. But one design really shined through that we were able to just kind of directly show you, and I'll point you in that direction once we get there. The other two, Dana and I, just piecemealed concepts from all of the final drafts that we got, so the students could still feel like they were incorporated into the ideas and the intention of the designs. And I'll kind of show you what that looked like from the transition between their design and ours. I also have a couple of statements, because Dana and Paula could not be here tonight, that I will read to you as we get through them. So I am in charge of the projector. So this is our first design and our first two panels. I'm actually going to jump to the end. Excuse me. On the far right, this is how it is laid out on Cheshire, Fremont Street. And so when you come back here, this is our first panel. And then our second one is just split in half, just because of the sheer size of it and designing it. We designed it in a program called Procreate on our iPads, so the scale of it can sometimes be hard on an iPad. And then here is the last three designs that are part of the first design. And I'm going to go ahead and read to you Dana's intention. As the artist behind the mural design, inspired by the collaborative efforts of 4 students, I intended to bring their themes around the wetlands and natural ecosystems of Cheshire to life. Each student's designs contributed valuable insights to the compositional planning, color palettes, and use of negative space, which ultimately informed the final piece. A large number of their designs incorporated water features, insects, foliage, and animals, all of which I aimed to incorporate in a way that would be best executed by the public, while also being mindful of our access to supplies. Negative space and information of it was the foundation for this work. The mural design serves as a visual homage to the delicate balance of life when the wetland ecosystem, within the wetland ecosystem, highlighting the interconnectedness of flora, fauna, and waterways. Through careful integration of the students' ideas, this mural design aimed to capture the essence of the wetlands, from the graceful movements of the native birds to the lush vegetation that thrives in these habitats. The color palette, influenced by the students' original concepts, reflects the natural hues found in the wetlands, from the serene blues of the water to the vibrant greens of the surrounding foliage. By incorporating their chosen colors and motifs, I aimed to evoke a sense of harmony and playfulness into the piece, inviting viewers to immerse themselves in the beauty of nature. So this was Dana's concept. So moving on to number 2. This is the one our student Maya designed. And I'll just show you again on the right, the scale. And these are the first panel, the second panel, the third one, and then the fourth and fifth. We ended up, Maya's original design was hand painted on paper, so we ended up digitizing it on the iPads, but we kept pretty much most of the design that she had initially created. And I have a little statement from Maya. Okay, the design I propose is mostly centered around the wildlife of Flagstaff. However, I also think that the fact Pluto was discovered in Flagstaff is also an important thing to integrate, so I've added the Big and Little Dipper with the bear characteristics behind them. My intention was to have the whole work flow together as one, hopefully making people slow down a little bit more to see progress along the road. So this is Maya's. And the third one is my concept. I did want to take a moment and show some of the student work. You'll have to forgive me. I meant to show some of it during Dana's piece that she incorporated. But sunflowers was a big kind of connection point between the focus group as well as a lot of the students' work showcased sunflowers. The wetlands, we did have some issues where we communicated that, we're not doing any text or logos or anything like that, but sometimes high schoolers, they have selective hearing. It's a little bit harder to see. Sorry for those of you online, I know you can't see this at all. And then some of the bugs and insects. So I'll jump to the last one so you can see it, kind of how it all flows together. And then this one was mine. I kind of pulled a lot from the student work and concepts. The idea for this one really came from the last comet design. And the idea was because we are so proud and celebratory of, our connection to space within Flagstaff, especially with Lowell Observatory. And the kids had a really big connection to this too, and their design work featured a lot of space concepts. So we started with the comet, which I pulled from this student's artwork. Student named Marisol. I can never say. So here is the original one. And then the second one came from here. And so the idea was to go from outer space into the atmosphere and then down onto the ground of Earth. So we started there, and then the far right slide is a transition from kind of space concepts to atmosphere and sky. We obviously have a lot of ravens focused within Flagstaff. Monsoon seasons are really big in Flagstaff, so I wanted to put that lightning bolt within there. And then pulling into what we refer to as the large hot dog shape in the center. We have names for them all. I'll tell you in a minute. So pulling in from kind of like a water scene, wetlands, which is obviously we've covered a lot as a topic, into an aspen tree. I wanted to put some pollinators in there too, as well as some sunflowers to kind of showcase that big sunflower area that happens near Cheshire every year and just beautifully grows. And then transition to kind of a more focused repetition of that sunflower into this far left one, as well as some bees, and then continuing that wetlands and water and growth concept within the background of that. Pardon? Okay, So what's nice?
To that other picture,
Yeah, of course. There we go.
what does that say, or are those words or?
Oh, no, it's an aspen tree. It's the details of the aspen tree. So they're lines and dots, and then I like to call them little eyeballs because aspen trees have eyeballs. It's kind of
So
fun.
that whole space in between the two connectors is a trunk, basically?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the idea. So execution of these, we kept that in mind a whole lot as we were planning. Basically, the process that we're gonna do is we're gonna grid everything. And then we're gonna chalk in or crayon in the lines that are the design work. Then we're gonna go over that with primer lightly. We're testing our paints tomorrow, so we're testing that fallout in their parking lot. So that'll help inform us a little bit more. But the idea right now is to lay down primer just where the design is. So anything you see that is black is gonna be the actual asphalt left over. And we're doing that to kind of conserve supplies and conserve our paint. After the primer's done and dry, we'll lay over a coat of paint and then do some touch-ups with another coat of paint after that. Make sure it's nice and opaque so it doesn't, you know, what paint looks like when you get it on the wall and it needs another coat. You don't want it to look like that.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So how will you delineate the outside line of black from the asphalt?
So what we're gonna do is they're gonna, Kim, maybe you want to speak to this. We're gonna get some of there'll be yellow like delineator lines.
Okay.
And then our artwork has to be 6 inches in from those. So when we're composing our grid, we're gonna circle that out at 6 inches all the way around. And then we'll grid and paint the interior of that.
That'll be in order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine are all black around it just because I needed to retrace the template as well. And so just kind of being mindful of that, but the black will be on the exterior of each design. Anybody else have any questions? That kind of is what I have, unless Kim has anything.
I know you've answered this before, but I don't think everybody has heard all the details. How long is it anticipated to stay vibrant, if you will?
So
It is temporary, correct? Sorry.
Yes, it is temporary. We have had a lot of discussion about this and what it's gonna look like, and I think it's largely gonna depend on our weather, you know,
Sure.
like how much traction is going over on it. Right now, there's gonna be candlesticks kind of blocking it from being plowed on, is my understanding, as well as cars driving over it. So depending on how much sun we're getting, the elements, I think it could last a year,
Nice.
given that. And I will check in with Kim with eyeballs.
So, hi, Kim Austin from Metroplan. I'm the project manager, not the artist in any way.
Can I get you to step just a little closer to the microphones? I know that you're listening carefully.
Thank you, sorry. I'm from Metroplan and I'm the project manager. So we would love for it to last at least a year. There are some Bloomberg projects that have lasted longer, but the city does have plans to permanently restructure Fremont Street. And it may or may not stay in the same design that we're planning. We need to do the traffic studies post project to see what happened. Did speed actually decrease? Did it not? And then go from there. But Fremont there is a planning for it to be I keep saying restructured. They're gonna slow this, they're reline, they're gonna slow the street, maybe in the same way, maybe not. My hope is that if everyone likes it and it's received favorably, maybe we can work with the city to find a way to put it back on, you know, in a more permanent fashion, but I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet. That's my hope personally. If you have any more questions, please ask. I'm around.
Any other questions or comments, folks? Heidi, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just, Chair, Commissioners Heidi Hansen, Economic Vitality Director, I just wanted to let you know, Discover Flagstaff did a asphalt mural right in the middle of downtown, several years ago. And it wasn't not well received. We had gotten in the newspaper 4 times to the point where I had to ask the editor to find something else to write about because it was getting like borderline ridiculous. But at any rate, I just wanted to caution you on what would probably help with this project is for Metro Plan to do a nice press release to explain how you involve the students and the process so that the community will embrace it instead of just say, wow, why did we do this? People are just going to drive over it and the snow plows are going to ruin it. Because quite honestly, ours actually lasted about 3 years and that was without having to repaint anything. So that was what our plan was, just to let it go until it kind of, got rid of itself. So just from some lessons learned, just a great press release involving the students would be a really good idea so that people can embrace the project in the right way. Thank you.
Is it all right if we speak to this?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want me to go? Yeah, go first and then I'll say words after you.
Okay, so yes, I am aware. I never saw it, but yes, I'm aware that there was some asphalt art. We have already, thank you to Love and Contracting, their marketing coordinator, donated her time and helped us to produce an educational video about asphalt art and about this project in general. It is up on Metro Plan's website currently. So I could have brought it, but I didn't even think about that. So yes, it's up. Dana is in it and she explains it's 2 minutes at the most, but it explains the project, why Fremont Street is the street that we were kind of tackling, and how Fala is kind of involved and the students. And then, yes, social media is happening. Don't worry, we're talking it up in a very, very positive way as best we can. Go.
A couple of things I wanted to point out of the difference between my understanding of the mural that went downtown on LaRue and Aspen Street, I believe, a number of years ago, is that wasn't a community involved project. Whereas what we're trying to do is involve the community every step of the way. We started by getting a focus group together of community members where members of the Cheshire community talked about, their values, what they like to see, what they like about the neighborhood, what's difficult about Fremont Street in general. And we took those concepts rooted in the community and have generated art from local artists and local schools based off of those intentions. Whereas, don't quote me on this, but I did hear that the mural originally created wasn't a local artist, that maybe they had pulled from another large city in this state. No, that was a local artist.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't-
Oh. Did I say something
No.
that was inappropriate?
No, but just so you just are aware of it.
Okay. Cool.
So this project is different.
Yeah, and I was wondering, I had a question about, did you guys highlight the traffic study, this being part of the traffic study in that little
Yes.
video?
As a matter of fact, David Lemke from the city of Flagstaff, I believe he's engineering. He is actually in the video discussing why Fremont Street was the one that was targeted for this project. Yes, he speaks to it. And I've heard from Bloomberg this morning that we're the only project that did an educational video about an asphalt art slow street project. None of the other projects have done that, which I don't know, I was kind of excited about that. But that was what we learned from the focus group. They didn't understand it, so we wanted to speak to that and put it out there. So the community does know. And this voting, or whatever happens tonight, we're putting the photos for community vote, and it's opening tomorrow. That I can get up tomorrow on Flagstaff Community Forum. So we're hoping to really involve the community as much as possible, invite them to come and paint. It's definitely as much of a community project as we can make it. So absolutely.
The biggest thing I see different here is the people that you're involving, the people that are going to primarily be using that street that could cause a complaint are the folks from the neighborhood who have already been involved, as opposed to this other one who, quite frankly, BPAC didn't even know about when it happened.
It was more of a tourism focused item, and it was, as Heidi put in the chat, it was intended to create a social media stir during the shoulder season, so it had a very target audience.
Yeah, it worked.
Sure. I know Heidi's over Discover Flag as well, so it was a project she was intimately involved in.
That project got a lot of spice.
It did.
It really did.
Yeah, and kudos to Dana and Kaylee and Rena at Follow Up for listening to the focus group in the neighborhood, their feedback and incorporating this into the artwork. So can't say enough great things about our artists.
You guys have done an awesome job with your outreach and working with the students. It's been really, really awesome to see sitting in and listening to the meetings. It's been fantastic.
So as we vote, the options are to vote for all three. And then we can let the community decide on the final one, which personally I think would be the best sell of this particular project. Or we can vote yes or no on each particular one. Are there any preferences for how we handle this vote?
It's my understanding, sorry to interrupt, that we do need two to move forward.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so we need two yeses, but we have the option of saying yes to all three and then letting the community decide, or we can, again, select two of the three in order to support the project.
Can I take a step back if I could?
Yes.
Because I appreciate Heidi's cautionary thoughts about why the other one was disliked. And I appreciate the fact that you've done a better job apparently of doing outreach to the community. Is that really all that was, there was the issue with it when it was done the last time? I don't feel like I understand why the last time wasn't successful.
Chris, well, first of all, from what I remember, nobody knew except for the planning department. I mean, BPAC wasn't informed, nobody was informed. I got a bunch of emails and calls that day saying, what is going on? You're the commission person for BPAC. So it was really, everyone was out of the loop. Secondly, the art was not considered art by anybody. It looked like a stamp. It was very generic. Yeah, it's very generic, somewhat commercial. And the placement of it. And it was a bold move in the middle of town where a lot of people had access to it. I remember, David.
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't something that came to BPAC because it was driven through Discover Flagstaff as a shoulder season visitation piece. It was graphic design, not art. There is a difference. And I think, for what it was intended for, it was a really interesting attempt to try something different. It didn't get received as well as I think we all hoped. I was there. You live and you learn. I do think there are different things. And that is, I think, why we're hopeful that because in part of the community process, in part because of the location, it's a different type of a project. But it wasn't necessarily that there was any sort of trying to keep BPAC out or anything like that. It wasn't BPAC funded. It wasn't from beautification or public art funds. It was a tourism project. And I don't think the locals really it didn't dive in for them. It was more of a graphic design item than an artistic item.
And with that being said, I think the importance is there was no, as far as I could tell, there was no like really in-depth meetings around this for community outreach. There wasn't a commission that was saying, well, what about this or what about this? Like we would at the BPAC because we deal with public art as much. I'm not sure how their committee went through it, but I never heard anything until I got the emails that day of the mailing.
Was the business alliance involved or not?
I can speak a little bit.
I'm happy to speak to it, since it was with my tourism team. So what happened was, you're right, it wasn't an artist piece. It was definitely for social media. And it was a piece created by our in-house creative team. And it was just to show that we're the destination for 4 seasons. And basically what you could do is you could actually go at the top of the Weatherford Hotel, and off the balcony, you could take selfies. And it was to kind of create social media frenzy because the businesses down there were really struggling and they were asking for something different. And so we decided that would do it. I'll be honest with you, the people that liked it, which were the visitors, did do a lot of social on it, and it was great for that. But the some of the community members who didn't agree with it because maybe they were unhappy that they weren't in a focus group or something, had so much to say about it that finally we were like, okay, we get it. So the point is, I think the fact that you've done a lot of outreach and you've invited the BPAC in and all of that, I think you're going to be in a lot better shape than we had been. We learned a lot of lessons about it. And I think if we were to ever do something like this again, we definitely would want it to be something that we sent out so that the artist groups could participate in versus something that we created in-house. But there was, the point was to basically help create that social media buzz. So there wasn't really, wasn't to be harmful or anything like that. But we did learn, learned a great deal. The only reason I even brought it up was because I hate for you to spend a lot of time on something when doing a quick press release or something could help you have it even more well received. That's the only reason I brought that up. And I think that you look like you've done your due diligence, which is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Chris, are you?
Heidi, I certainly appreciate all of those thoughts. And Kaylee, this looks beautiful. Well done.
So our intent is definitely, I mean, social media, great. And I'm learning social media as well. But our intent is to slow the street by marrying art and traffic calming. So a little bit different. I would love to see this in other neighborhoods. So we're really trying to make this a positive. In addition to the educational video, the forum, a mailer is going out to every resident in Cheshire with, because we are going to close the roadway. There are going to be impacts. And so we're trying to make it, the result's going to be a safer street, a beautiful art with a safer street. So we're sort of really hoping that happens. Social media, definitely. Bloomberg is going to do before and after drone footage. So we're really trying to put a very, very positive spin on this project. So.
Thank you.
Chair Cruz, I'm really happy with your idea of how to move this forward.
Voting for the 3 at the same time?
Yeah.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. So may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to move all 3 projects to community bidding process.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been moved to approve all 3 of the art choices and allow the community to decide ultimately. Is there a second?
Second.
Claire Johnson, I put it in the chat. I don't know.
That she,
But not me.
so Claire seconded?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Claire. All in favor, it's moved and seconded to approve all 3 art pieces as presented and to allow the community to decide on the final piece. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Claire Edelman, I saw you come off of the mute, but I moved forward before you could say aye, so I'm assuming that was an aye.
That's correct. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry for doing that. The motion is approved and all 3 are, the motion carries and all 3 designs are approved. Thank you for your time, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Would you like, how would you like to know who wins? Would you like Jana? I mean, we're communicating with her constantly.
Yeah,
I hope everyone can come and paint with us. We need the help.
yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Real quick, I just want to apologize for a bit of hearsay that I may spread. So thank you for your patience and thank you, Heidi, for that correction. Sorry.
Thank you. So moving forward, recommending approval to council of capital projects.
All right, I'm actually gonna take this one, since Janet is experiencing a celestial moment, if you will, and then hopefully she had a fantastic time. I know there were some clouds, but I think, from what I hear, I've heard, it's been fun watching people text and post and stuff, and so even the places where it might not have been quite as clear, I won't tangent for a long chair, I apologize, but it sounds like it's pretty special. Good. We are hoping to, do a quick presentation regarding the Arts and Beautification Capital Fund, Arts and Sciences Fund. And with your approval, we'd be able to move that forward to council. One of the great things about it is that it hasn't changed since your review in January. I'll go through this as what was provided to council, but basically what you guys helped put together with Jana and with all that work, exactly what's here. So this was a part of the capital retreat that Councilmember Sweet attended just recently. And so council received this. We're just sharing it with you as a part of this presentation. As you can see in the first slide, project selection is mainly driven by this body. There is public input in city projects that go alongside some of those things. The Spruce Wash Wedge, beautifying the floodwater mitigation infrastructure. With fencing aesthetics, we've been actually working with them as the design has come closer and closer together. I'm kind of excited about some of the things that we should be able to do to help make that into a much more attractive and aesthetically pleasing area. There is not just the fence, but potentially some 3D artwork at Cedar West and some beautification landscaping potential as well. Route 66 landscaping, $250,000 projects, Route 66 along Ponderosa, Route 66 at Verde. These are ongoing efforts along Route 66. They've been a part of the process even prior to getting ready for the centennial, but I think there's an even more exciting component of it as we approach the centennial. The Schweitzer Canyon roundabout, these are not going to be surprises to you, so I hope you don't mind that I'm just kind of rolling through. Call to artists is in process. It includes the required hardscape and mounding. So we're excited to see what the public and the artistic process brings forward for that project. The Downtown Connection Center, as you've probably become aware, they're actually going big right now. There's a lot of vertical happening. So we're excited to see the art components become a part of that soon. Lone Tree Overpass, also beautification and artistic components. 1.5 million towards those pieces. It is not cheap to do that scale of beautification and artwork, but hopefully it'll create a monument for the ages, if you will, or for at least a long time. 4th Street Lockett Roundabout as well. And then some of the upcoming projects, 4th Street Bridge Phase 2, the Buffalo Park Water Tank. That one actually may be moving faster than was anticipated due to some partnerships we might get with water services. So I'm sure Jen will bring that back if that continues, but that one actually seems like there's some real synergies that can happen with the procurement process that they're involved in already. Butler Avenue and 4th Street Roundabout, north edge of Milton and the train station platform, of course, school walkways and the continuing work to do east side beautification. For arts and sciences, the annual multicultural county park sculpture exhibition, the first one opening, you just heard the announcement about the launch of the first one. This is meant to be one that changes and rotates and creates a dynamic sense of art that way. Also, the Southside Murdoch Center 3D sculpture selection process. And out year projects, alley activation, Rio de Flag, a focus on Pluto and the lunar legacy, and again, the continuation of that multicultural park sculpture exhibition, which has gotten actually some real exciting buzz, I think, in the arts community. There's folks who are pretty excited about the ability to put their pieces up and that we actually try to make that happen in a cool way. And that's the entirety of the presentation. Again, the 5-year plan and what has been proposed through the budget process is exactly what you folks worked with Jana on in January. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
So our task tonight is to recommend approval for the capital project budgets. So are there any questions or comments or discussion about this, folks?
I moved to.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval for the capital project budgets. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Clarice, did you guys get a chance to vote or did I move too fast again?
I think, I think I was slow on my unmute, but I, for me.
It's unanimous. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. The motion carries and the budget's approved as presented. You also have the next, the mural art design. Oh, it's Kristen, I'm sorry. The mural art design.
Come back later.
Oh, thank you.
We're tag teaming. Hope you don't mind. Takes two to fill Jana's shoes.
Right.
So I'm here to tonight, to present on a project request from Dark Sky Brewing Company. And if you remember, they received funding for a beautification and action grant in fall 2023. And you had approved their artwork at that time. There has since been a change, and they contacted me recently to supply new artwork to be considered for this project. And I'll tell you the reason why momentarily. But this was the artwork that was approved in the fall of 2023 for their beer garden. And this is artwork that was recently proposed. This is because Dark Sky Brewing Company, the building owner wanted artwork that was in line and complemented existing imagery already at the site. And so, and I'll show you that shortly, but as you will see, obviously, there is a stylistic departure. So rather than the trees and those native pollinators, that was their original inspiration for their artwork. We see here instead these dark sky portals that not only showcase the night sky of Flagstaff, but also the ponderosa trees in this region. Now, these are in line, close up, again, with existing imagery already on the site. And these are portals that are already there. The one on the left is imagery that resides on the east side of Birch Avenue Tattoo. So just right across the street from the parking lot, right across the street from the beer garden. And then this particular image here is a bit further back, so more on the south side of the property. And again, the artist here, his name is Sean Griffin. He will be designing, if you approve this proposal, these portals as well.
So did he not already design these?
No, the original artwork, the artwork from fall, this artwork back here was going to be, this was going to be executed by the Dark Sky Brewing Company owner, Laramie Sandlin.
Oh, okay.
And now they're going with a new artist. And so, and Sean Griffin, so he designed these portals, which you see here. And he's known for his graphic design, his illustrations, and his, what escapes me right now?
Portals.
Aerosol art. There we go. So that is what he will be creating these images from. And that is my presentation.
All right, folks. Discussion. Our task is to approve or deny the new design.
I feel after our last discussion about the art that highlighted in the beginning of the presentation, that we were really heard by the people that were applying for this, by Dark Sky Brewery, because the changes that they make, I think, are delightful and kind of synergetic. They run along with the rest of what's going on in that building. Really happy with it. Aesthetically, I think it looks great.
Good, thank you. I would agree with you. Any other comments?
It looks beautiful.
Are we ready to vote? I'll entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Or to deny.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been moved and seconded to approve the new art design at Dark Sky Brewery as submitted. All in favor say aye.
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 She was fast that time.
Thank you for your. Yeah, it's unanimous. The motion carries and the design is approved. Thank you, folks. Moving forward to the discussion items. First up is the color of money.
Back to me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Chair and Commissioners. This is in response to Commissioner Barrow's questions earlier on regarding some of the funding and how color of money works with us and the Creative Flagstaff contract in particular. So I was just going to kind of run through some items. I did not prepare a PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can just, but I will walk through sort of the various ideas and then feel free to ask whatever questions you may have. So we use the term color of money, and I'm actually going to start at the beginning. I guess all the people who might not have heard some of this have left, but I just feel like building on the beginning is the foundation will help, but I'll move quickly through it. So we use the term color of money to help describe the various funds that the city uses for a wide variety of purposes. And many of you have heard us during budget retreats talk about this before. The most flexible fund that we have is the general fund. That makes sense, right? It's the general one, but it's often extremely stretched, paying for things like police and fire and some of the other traditional uses of government. We have many other funds that are used for specific purposes. Some example, the Highway User Revenue Fund, which is funding that is only allowed to be used to maintain or develop streets. Park Flag, whose revenues can only be used for parking, are good examples. The BBB is also a special revenue fund, which means it's not commingled with the rest of our funding, and it can only be used for very specific purposes. Those are divided into 5 categories by percentages, right? So not divided evenly, but 5 different uses are receiving funding from the BBB. And those 5 uses, each gets a percentage, and there's an ordinance that actually defines what those funds can be used for. So beautification and arts and sciences are 2 of those 5 uses. The other 3 are PROS, Parks and Recreation, tourism, and economic development. So beautification and arts and sciences, being 2 separate ones, are defined by the ordinance as 2 very separate uses of funding. That's why we say that within that color of money, there are 2 separate colors, if you will. Beautification speaks within the ordinance about landscapes and improvements that exalt the mind. I always love reading that definition, and I'm happy to if you like. Actually, I just will. Just because it's kind of fun, that we have an ordinance that says any modification of the physical environment to increase pleasure to the senses or pleasurably exalt the mind or spirit or strengthen the urban design framework of the city. Originally, the beautification fund did a lot of purchasing and taking down billboards, and has been used traditionally to focus on streetscapes and public infrastructure type areas. So we look at it as a way to do to beautify infrastructure, if you will, and the places where the public's going to go by. The Arts and sciences directly relates to those as well as culture. It's actually defined as support for Flagstaff arts, scientific and cultural activities, events and organizations to provide direct and indirect citizen participation and enhancement of the overall quality of life and community image, including supporting public art. And there are within the ordinance, which I have available if there's specific questions, a little bit more detail about some of the activities that are envisioned, but you can get the real feeling there of those two. One is focused on arts and science, and the other is more about the streetscape and the urban form. So we do have a little bit of overlap between the two funds sometimes, and I do want to acknowledge that, right? Two examples of places where one could see some overlap. One is in beautification and action grants. The other is in traffic signal cabinets, both of which you heard of tonight. Some people would consider those art. But because they're in the streetscape, they're generally only eligible if they're done within the public view and as a part of the urban framework. We use beautification funding for both those projects, right? So utility boxes are by nature along a streetscape, and therefore we feel it fits. But you can see how that's one of those places where some gray area exists. And in general, because beautification actually receives a significantly larger portion of the BBB pie, there's usually more room in that fund. And so where there's gray space like that, we try to be very careful. We work with our attorneys, we work with our bond language, we work with the ordinance to make sure that we're clean, but we'll generally lean into using beautification funding if it's something that covers both. Arts and sciences does have some projects that are very focused on art in particular, but often a fair amount of that particular fund goes to that Creative Flagstaff contract and then is dispersed partly through them to 40 or so nonprofits, and also to do some direct art with festivals such as ArtX and that kind of a nature. So in general, that's how we have looked at dividing these in the past. And that's kind of the color of money question. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
And so when you were asking questions about how do we just make it a bigger pie, unfortunately at this point, we have moved some projects into beautification where it felt legal, appropriate, and ethical, all the good words. But within the Arts and Science Fund, at this point, we're maxing that fund out. And so there's not additional room to add more money to the Creative Flagstaff contract. In fact, we're using the entirety of the fund outside of the projects that you just approved.
Thank you.
I have a question, David.
Mhm.
So since we're, you said maximize our usage of the art. Is there, like when we go back out to the voters, is there any talks about potentially shaving off some of the beautification we give to art, or how does that look? Because I know that the beautification fund is bigger, and I wonder if we're actually utilizing that.
Yes, sure. At this point, we've asked council in a couple different sessions for their feedback, and it's been made pretty clear that we're not looking to change the allocation. Changing the allocation becomes extremely complicated. There are a lot of different groups that all feel like the allocation should be a little bit different. We've talked to lots of them, and it's pretty clear that there isn't anybody. It would be a lot of controversy. There'd be a lot of complication, and probably nobody would get exactly what they want. However, the current allocation is something that I think people have gotten used to. One of the things to think about is, yes, beautification funding is a larger fund, and we have in the past had some significant fund balances get carried forward. Part of that is because we saved significant funding with the BPAC's approval towards a major investment in the 4th Street corridor. When that didn't happen, it took us a while to kind of move some of those funds out. But when you think about what beautification does, beautification is because it's focused on infrastructure, by necessity, that becomes very expensive. We just talked about Lone Tree's not even ready to build, and we're going to spend 1.5 million on form liners, concrete, artistic elements, things like that. But you do along landscaping buffer along Route 66, these are substantial costs because you're adding in irrigation. And anytime you're doing infrastructure, it just costs so much more than you think it would. Whereas
There's less.
There's less engineering involved with the art. That's really well said. I'm not saying that it's not worth having more money for the art, but without changing the allocation, there is a reason why beautification gets a larger amount, and it is because it does infrastructure citywide. And if you actually go back through the history, there was no arts and science fund originally. Originally, it was beautification, economic development, and tourism, and parks and recreation and arts and sciences were added later. And actually, well, there was four originally. It was beautification, tourism, economic development, and administration. There was a cut for the city to administer it, but in a council action, when during one of the renewals, they removed the administration. So all the money goes directly into the services that we're talking about. And they added in arts and sciences to make sure that there was funding available for a vibrant nonprofit and artistic sector. And they added in Parks and Rec because they felt like making sure that some of these funds could move out and do maintenance and those types of items in your fields and parks was actually a really great benefit too. BBB, as Heidi put in the chat, is derived from a tax on hotels, campgrounds, short-term rentals, restaurants, and bars. And because it's what's considered a tourism tax, it's actually framed within state regulations that we can only use it for uses that relate to tourism in some way. I actually don't think I can speak legally precisely on this one, but if, you know, part of the justification for Parks and Rec is that we have a lot of visitation come up for softball tournaments, things like that. So there has to be a tie to visitation for the use of these funds. Obviously, beautifying your community helps with visitation. Obviously, arts and science helps with visitation. And what we are able to do, in part because of this, is actually provide significant benefit to the locals while providing for that enhanced visitor experience. I see Heidi, Chair, if you don't mind, I see Heidi.
Heidi, please, you have something to say?
I do. Dave's doing a great job explaining this. Just so you're all aware, I think the reason that the council has decided we just want to move with the renewal is there's going to be a lot of things that are coming up prior to the November election. As you know, there's going to be a water rate increase more than likely, I believe, in July. And then you have mountain lions going to be going onto the ballot and so on and so forth. If you start getting into not just letting people know how important it is to renew the BBB, because it does take that burden off the general fund for public safety and housing and sustainability and all of those things that are super important. If we start changing things and start talking about allocation changes, what's going to happen is I guarantee you everyone will get less. And that's because people are going to start coming out of the woodwork saying, well, what about this and what about that? And then what it starts to do is starts to dilute what this is, and it truly is a tourism tax. And I can tell you, when I was CVB director prior to this position, all I did was have calls with stakeholders, with the hotels and restaurants and bars that were so mad that they weren't getting their 48% anymore. So I can tell you, it would become quite a battle. And I think the council would have a really hard time figuring out what to do. And I think that that's why they've chosen that the best action is just to get it renewed, knowing that there's so many other things that are really impeding our community, like minimum wage hike, and of course the water hike that's going to happen and things like that, that in some cases really do need to happen. But I can tell you, we're seeing that businesses are getting it from every angle, and it's really getting quite exhausting for them. And so I think less confusion is better. Also, with the arts and science, we put the majority of that fund, as you all know, into giving grants back out to that industry. And that's really our focus, is to do that, which I think is great. And then, like Dave said, as soon as you have a beautification project that starts happening, it does spill over to the arts community, because we normally try to spread that to our arts community so they can participate. So there's a lot of that overflow. But at any rate, I think that's really where we're at with that, knowing that there's going to be a lot that the community is going to have before them leading up to the election, and they're already struggling right now. But I will tell you that I can't advocate, but I will educate you that your help on that BBB renewal is going to be important. So thank you for Chair for allowing me to say some words.
Thank you. Those are great talking points as we do our work in the community in terms of educating as well. I appreciate that. And it was also a good reminder about upsetting the balance and how sometimes that creates an impact that is the opposite of what we might want. So this is just a discussion point. Are there any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I mean, I follow all that, Dave, and I appreciate that. And Heidi, I really value your thoughts as well. I guess sort of what I'm coming down to, and my question is, maybe the answer to this is going to be entirely unsatisfactory. Is I'd like to give more money to Creative Flagstaff, right? And I'm not even talking about the grant funded stuff, and I love that, and I am one of those NGOs that gets that. But the operations for Creative Flagstaff and the Coconino Center for the Arts in general. And I realize that the budget's tight and maybe that color is all spent. But there's my dream.
Understood. And I think we have spent a lot of time talking with formerly Jonathan and now Julie about what the right ways to implement the contract are. And I can tell you that they've received more flexibility in the last year in how they can spend it, in part because we understood that some of the value is in, the CCA itself and making sure that it's a strong asset as well as going out. But I have to say that we're not in a place where it feels great to be like, hey, as we're heading into BBB and a council election, let's tell all the nonprofits they're going to get less. Because unfortunately, the way we have it at the moment, there is a finite capacity to the fund. And there is not another fund that is able to step in. So I think Jana, myself, Heidi's been involved, Greg's been involved directly. We actually worked with the county to see if there were ways that we could partner together to try to provide additional support. We've really looked with a lot of care at how the numbers could function most effectively to create and maintain that vibrant nonprofit community that comes up over and over again as a real asset for Flagstaff, while at the same time acknowledging that Creative Flagstaff has a real role to play itself, and that the CCA is an amenity, and that there might be room for some movement within that. I think we're going to have those continued conversations. As you know, we're doing a process currently, and we appreciate BPAC's participation in it to help better understand some of those investments, in part because we're going to be, the contract with Creative Flagstaff ends in about a year. And so we'll need to do some sort of an RFP. And of course, we'll be talking with BPAC about that as we move that forward. But that is one of those things is we're hoping to learn to some extent what some of the community feels are the best investments. I can tell you there are some folks who love the idea of CCA and love Creative Flagstaff. I think there are a lot of folks who want more money to go to the grants, to the nonprofits. It kind of depends where you're sitting, how you look at that. And so we're, as staff, working to find the best balance possible that council can support. And we'll be bringing an amendment to them in the not too distant future, basically saying, here's what the scope looked like. And here's what our conversation with Jonathan and Julie have led to us thinking provides just as great a benefit to the arts and culture sector. It's a slightly different use of funds, and then council can give us direction. But that's, at this point, the best we can do. There's just not another funding source available. But we are working with Creative Flagstaff, and we worked a lot with Jonathan. I went to the Valley with Jonathan and looked at different models. We've spent a lot of time trying to figure out the right way to do this. And I know I think we'd all love to give more funding to, I guess I can't say we all, everybody else has a different opinion. I would love to find ways to really support CCA and other venues like that. But there is a very delicate balance in some ways with how much you can provide to the nonprofits and how much goes to the Creative Flagstaff. And unfortunately, all the nonprofits have had cost increases, right? We know Creative Flagstaff has talked about how their cost increases are a part of the challenge. every one of the nonprofits they fund have dealt with similar cost increases. And we want to honor both of those.
And the money from Arizona Commission for the Arts is drying up for the next year, as you know, so
No.
nonprofits are gonna need a lot of the support.
I think it's also important to add, David, that you have been creative with funding in the, not creative with funding in the past, that leads to other thoughts. But you, when funding was there and available, you have moved it into action with Creative Flagstaff where it was appropriate. And I appreciate that.
I really appreciate you saying that, actually.
Yeah.
That's true. We've worked really well with them over the years.
And I also really appreciate all your hard work on this. I really do. Hard work that predates me by a long, long, long time. And I value it. It's not going to stop me from trying to advocate for that, though.
Totally understood. Wanted to provide that information and yeah, there's at this point just not a perfect solution for what you're hoping for. I think the solution we have at the moment is to work with them on working to get a scope that really helps them while maintaining that support for the nonprofit community as passed through to the best we can with the funds that we have available. I just don't see any appetite for general fund allocation there. I don't think it would be appropriate to try to use beautification per the way the ordinances are. And that starts to limit us because of the color of money.
I did preface my question with the fact that my answer is probably going to be unsatisfactory.
I just like, I like providing satisfactory answers. In this case, there is not one for you.
And Heidi did put something in the chat.
Okay, my computer went dark and I kept talking. What's the chat say, please?
She said Creative Flagstaff is in the budget to get an increase in FY25. At some point, we have to balance giving them all the money versus putting more money toward the arts and science grants, which is the role of that funding.
Very concise way of saying what took me 12 minutes.
And Chris, I'm just curious, just from your perspective, are you more in favor of increasing budgets to Creative Flagstaff or more in favor of increasing budgets to the grants?
I'm entirely biased on the second half of that, so I would recuse myself if that discussion came up. But I think funding Creative Flagstaff in and of itself with a facility that is aging and it's not, I think, meeting our needs anymore and not just capital wise, but programmatically. I think we're missing the boat on how well or not well they're funded. And I get all the constraints, but yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I was just gonna say, I also know it's complicated because of the county ownership of that building. But I know that also the county and the city cooperate very well together. And I have a lot of curiosity about the value of that facility and that land, which is not centralized. And the value of a smaller facility that is centralized, you know, and whether or not there could be some kind of cooperation, because that facility is, as you said, it's challenging and it's expensive to run and expensive to heat. And it's also, I mean, it's out in the forest and I think a lot of people who are visitors to our community miss it, which is unfortunate because the stuff that's inside of it is special. But that's my curiosity, and I know that becomes complicated because of the county involvement. And I don't know politically like where people in the county stand on that piece of land. And I know that when that was put in the primary focus of our community were those west side neighborhoods also, like that was where a lot of the support for that new art center came from. But I think that the community has grown and shifted quite a bit as well. And I wonder if a more centralized facility that costs less would be appropriate. But then there's also the current cost of land.
I mean, I can tell you that I think there is a lot of conversation within our public process that we've done in previous years. As you know, there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that a different venue for the arts would be ideal. And whether that's right downtown or whether that's somewhere further east, there's a lot of good conversation about that. The study that Creative Flagstaff, the city helped pay for a study Creative Flagstaff did, thought that maybe where the DCC is going would be a perfect spot for it. But obviously, you know, that ship has sailed. But I think it's within the next I think it's within the short to medium term, we need to get that conversation going again. The challenge becomes, how do you fund that, right? We were just talking about the number of things going on the ballot in November. The one way to do this would be through a bond, but that would be competing with all the other things that are getting bonded for. So it does have to be something where we talk about it, to some extent going forward. I think it's a community need. It's been identified. It will continue to be something that we have to figure out. And this commission has a role to play in that conversation. I don't think there's an immediate path. There's maybe a medium term path.
And also, it comes down to the organization itself and programming and things like that. And I've seen quite the uptick of visitorship out there because of the programming that they're bringing. And if you have so that being said, I had one more point to make or ask if you were done. Okay. And David, I would just suggest or ask you, when new commissioners come on board, if you can save this presentation when you guys meet with them. Sure. And I think that would be a nice way to kind of kick off and let them understand where they stand with the committee. The only addition you might want to make is letting them see the pie chart that shows the breakdown of the beautification, the part that goes to CCA.
That's a great
And
idea.
then the last, just the part that stays here with us.
No, that's a fantastic idea.
It's, I'm using conglomeration of things.
It really is. And I know I do what, like 2.3 minutes on it at the beginning of the commission budget retreat, but probably having a little bit of an introductory as somebody's coming on board would be more helpful. So
I think Jenna does an orientation for folks, but that's a good idea. That's a good idea if this is not already included. Heidi, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just need to tell you that I've already been in contact with, I've had two meetings actually with the county manager, Steve Peru, and Greg Clifton, our city manager, about Creative Flagstaff. And so our decision was in FY25 for Dave and his team to ask for an increase, which they did. Noting, though, that their increase that goes to administration takes away from increasing things that go to the grants program. So you realize it is a balancing act that we're doing there, and not one that I would probably, shout from the rooftops, quite honestly. But we are trying to help Creative Flagstaff stay whole. But what we would ask them to do, when you come to us and you say you have a $300,000 problem, we ask them to look at things like we do at a city organization or at a county organization, and we start saying, do you need to rehire that open position? Do you need to do things like that? So we're asking them to do an analysis of their group, of their organization, just like we have to do here. So that was one thing. Then where the county is going to be effective this year is they did do some maintenance on the infrastructure of the Center for the Arts. And the county manager had a separate meeting with Creative Flagstaff, I think quite recently, to discuss, the future of that infrastructure. And so as they have more meetings, and I think they might even be wanting to do some surveys and things like that, Steve said he'll get back to us. We'll know more about, if that's a capital campaign or what have you, and if that is a location change that everyone's trying to, to look for. But anyway, the point is the county manager and the city manager are fully invested in making sure the arts community is in solid shape, and that includes trying to help Creative Flagstaff. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi.
Any other questions or comments? So let's move forward to the BIA grant applications. You guys got the packet. It was 78 pages or something.
Slightly less than the fall.
Okay, so today we are here I'm here to record questions and concerns that you would like to see addressed in the presentations by applicants in May. So I hope all of you had a chance to read through the applications. If you have any questions, of course, we can pull them up and look, but my goal is just to my plan, excuse me, is just to go through these. There are currently 7 eligible applicants. And we'll go through these one by one, and you can voice your concerns or anything that you would like clarified so that I can communicate that to each applicant and they can prepare for their May presentation. So first up is Be Generous by the Assistance League of Flagstaff. So they are applying for a mural designed by artist Joel Geist to be installed on the side of their building. And they have artwork as well that they have included. So does anyone have any concerns or questions about this particular application? No.
I
Okay,
didn't. What was, did they have a proposed design in that one?
they do. You
Okay.
keep scrolling through, keep going down a little bit more. Joel took the board members through a range of exercises in developing this iconography and this imagery, and here it is
Okay,
here.
yeah. Any questions for the artist presenting next month?
Next up, the South Side Downtown Art Wrap. So this is a project by the Flagstaff Downtown Business Alliance. They are looking to wrap a cabinet that resides on Lumberyard Brewing Company's property. When this cabinet right here. This is not the artwork that they're proposing. They are actually going to be embarking on a call to artists. So if they are approved for this, then they will be doing a call to artists. We will, of course, help them disseminate that call out to local artists here. Now, I do want to state, in case someone had this concern when they were reading through the application, that there are a few of these applications that need request or APS's permission to wrap. And this is one of them that we have asked APS permission for. And there are 2 others as well. And so we are waiting for a yay or a nay from APS.
So city does that for the applicant, or does the applicant do that?
Normally the applicant does that, but they are in a transition period. So the contact that I used to give to applicants, he's transitioned out of that role. And so I thought it just best that the ask comes from one person for this spring grant cycle. So I did that for the applicants.
So if we review this next month with the applicant, then refresh my memory, please, in terms of it, and they do a call to artists, will we get to look at the final design and approve, or?
You can, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. I saw this and thought of Anthony's comment about, sort of putting something when we've got it right in the background in real life.
And we did that, just to refresh everyone's memory too, with NAU
Right.
received a award last fall, and they just did their call to artists and they selected an artist, and Gianna sat in on that panel.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any questions regarding this particular application? Great. The next one is revising La Plaza Vieja Park. And I just wanted to say that this particular project fulfills a need. So this park was on a previous 5-year plan in our program. And it's obviously no longer because we did not have a project, but we have a project now. And this particular project, the grant applicants have done a wonderful job. It's very detailed application, and they have approval from PROS, which is Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Events at the City of Flagstaff.
Did anyone have any questions or comments about any of these? I saw this. And I didn't read word for word. It was a long application, and I'm sure it was beautifully written. And so I'm speaking out of ignorance based only on what I see. And I just thought a bunch of bricks with names.
Well, there is also an oral history component.
Right, and the website, and I thought about who's, anytime someone says, we're gonna do a QR code and we're gonna have a website, I always wonder about who's gonna maintain that, right? I mean, Teams had an update and threw us for a loop, right? So technology requires upkeep. And so that was and that might have been included, but I didn't see that. And so I will certainly read it more carefully prior to the main meeting. But anytime QR code technology, I wonder who's gonna maintain it, right?
I can have the applicant clarify that in the presentation
Okay.
and what their plan is for that.
So a little beyond that, that upper right-hand photo, is that the current condition of the park?
I
Like
don't
the
know.
upper, no, the upper right, or is that I just can't.
Those are the
I have
bricks.
terrible eyes, the bricks.
Those are the bricks with the names on
But
them.
that's what they're proposing.
Right, right. It looks like a donor.
What
one
is
to
it
me.
replacing?
I don't believe that there is anything there in the present, at the present
Is it
time.
just going in that dirt spot right here? That's in the
That's my
foreground?
understanding.
It's gonna be names of prominent families and historical figures, prominent families who live there.
I just wonder if there's
Another way to.
a bit more eloquent way to represent something kind of important. I mean, not kind of important, something important. If this is, I also though respect the bandwidth of the individuals looking to put this in place, because it takes a lot to change even a small amount of dirt.
So what do you want them to prepare?
I just wonder, because oftentimes I look at that park, I see that park quite frequently every day. And it's one of the things that I wonder is like, it's got a lot of, pretty lackluster landscaping, and other things that I wonder if maybe there's not a different need in that park. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, is that those names are important, and if that's what's important to the applicant, we have to evaluate it based on just that.
Right.
But I wonder, like in particular, like that dirt spot, like if we're really thinking about La Plaza Vieja Park and what goes there, once you put names down on bricks in a park, as we all know from our experience with memorial trees, those are there forever. And it's going to prevent any future landscape updates or changes to that specific spot in the park, because I think it would become essentially a memorial tree. And so that's just my question. I really respect the desire to do it. I don't think there's really anything wrong with the proposal, but I'm just thinking through the memorial tree challenge.
I think our role here would be to, approve or deny this specific project as is. And if we approve it, then we can do our work to get more proposals in that same spot and have this be like, the kickoff beautification project for that. And hopefully, if somebody sees a positive change and other
Yeah.
people want to erect things, and I say erect because I view something more 3D in that space, but maybe that would be the hope, right? And that would be our charge, is to try and.
And I don't need to belabor the conversation. It's a nice proposal. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
And I think it would just be important to ask the artists to be here, make sure that they're here, because I think we could inspire a conversation with them themselves, or the person who proposed it.
I was just saying, is there an artist involved?
No, it's the La Plaza Vieja Association, so they'll be presenting in May. Okay, any other
discussion?
any other concerns?
Folks on the call, chime in as you are compelled to.
Moving on, the next one is the Sunnyside Labyrinth. And this is a proposal. to do,
Got nothing. Thank you.
this is a proposal to do a labyrinth in a common area of a neighborhood, the Vickers Park common area, which you see here. I have reached out, if you can just slow down just a second. I have reached out to the applicant for clarification. They state that it would be open, to the neighborhood or those who reside within that HOA and the public. But I've asked, is this particular site, if you scroll up a little bit, because this is the current site right now where they're proposing to do the labyrinth, is this site accessible and is it visible from the road? So that is what I have asked them. I have not heard back, but I will
Do
keep
we
you
have a
posted.
map of exactly where this is located? Because I was kind of looking at it and it was a little unclear on Google Earth.
No, and I can ask, because we do have a project location, but it's the same address as the applicant's address.
I pulled it up on Google Earth and it was like a little bit unclear.
Yes.
And it's
It's
got
just
fencing on
it's just
three sides.
the duplex. I was going up and down the street as well.
Yeah.
Have we seen this before? I get deja vu when I see that photo. Or is it just like a famous labyrinth, something that I would have seen?
Well, in RX last year, we had a labyrinth that was constructed, but.
Okay.
We also had a fall grant application for a labyrinth at Willow Bend Environmental
I'm
Education.
just gonna say, it reminds me of the Willow Bend wildflower.
Thank you, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I will communicate that to the applicant about accessibility, public accessibility and visibility.
Right, or some sort of like, I don't know, announcement that it's there or something.
So this one is a proposal by a local artist, and this is actually to wrap a utility cabinet, which you see here over at Sanawa Middle School. And the artist was very proactive in getting approval from not only the art instructor at Sanawa Middle School, but the vice principal as well, which she included in her application. And so this, if you scroll down, you'll see the proposed imagery.
Which we
Here.
had presented before. I don't know if you guys were on that panel.
So
But it didn't, I like it, but it was a tough. Yeah,
the artist previously applied for a traffic signal cabinet.
right. And I was on Jana with that traffic box. Every time I drove by it, I would send her 2 pictures of it. Say, where are we? Where are we?
5 o'clock that I'm sending her.
So this is this particular box. We are waiting on APS for their approval. This is another one that's awaiting APS approval. Does anybody have any questions about this project or concerns?
So just to ask you, not for the artist necessarily, but the box was previously painted by art teacher and students. And so the artist who's proposing to wrap it went to them to ask permission if they could.
They
redo it,
actually,
correct?
we assumed that it was painted by students, but when she inquired with the school, they really didn't know how the artwork came to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Pretty old.
Yeah, it's not in good shape.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one, another art wrap. This is by a local artist, Jillian Sanders. And so this is for a smaller cabinet that resides along a Highway 180 across from Fratelli's Pizza. And you can scroll down and you can see a rough mock-up there. Her work is very colorful, very vibrant.
It reminded me of Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
I really like it.
And so this one again, and this one also has been sent to APS. We're waiting their approval for this particular location.
It's so different from some of the other applications we've received. I like that it creates a broader aesthetic.
I guess the only thing that it's not a question. I just wish the colors are more vibrant. It just seems like they're watercolors rather than, sort of something that'll stand out a little bit more in terms of vibrancy.
That seems like a good conversation to have.
Absolutely. And if you scroll down to, if maybe some of you were able to look through, some of her other artworks.
Yeah,
That stuff's pretty vibrant.
yeah. She probably doesn't want to be compared to Dr. Seuss, but that's what I imagine.
Almost psychedelic too.
Okay, any questions on this one? Last one, mural at the East Valley Public Library. This is by Lonnie K. Weiss. I will say Lonnie has received, again, we're still in the permission, waiting for approval. Lonnie has received permission from Coconino County to do a mural on the building. But I have asked for that to be in writing. And I've also sent her the contact information for the Flagstaff library director, so that they can receive input from City of Flagstaff staff, library staff, on not only for this location, but also for this imagery. Just know that as well.
Do they only have to ask CCC or and the city, or do they also have to ask the? Because that's a leased facility, I think.
We lease it from CCC.
I think CCC, this is
It's a lease.
I do not believe CCC. I want to double check, but
Okay.
I don't think CCC owns that
I
property.
thought it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, CCC owns the building and the library leases the 10,000 square feet from them. So this would be a CCC decision. I appreciate if Linda Tilson, our library director, could have a say on it, but I think ultimately it really would be up to the CCC if they want that to happen or not.
okay. And they don't, do you know, Heidi, is the land also owned by CCC? Does
I
that matter?
believe so. Yeah, I believe so. There was a discussion at one point where they were asking us to relocate because they needed to expand, but then I think they found out they just didn't have enough land for that expansion.
Okay.
But at any rate, definitely would be more of a CCC thing, but it's nice that the library would at least know what was happening. Thanks.
Thank you for your knowledge.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions?
No questions for the artist on that, folks?
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving forward, are there any requests for future agenda items? Or to from items? Hearing none, we'll move forward. The time and date for the next meeting is Monday, May 13th. It will be hybrid, I assume, if they all are. So join in whatever way you can. I'll return the meeting at 5:46 and wish you a good month. Thank you, folks.
Are you on the county?
City, yeah,
CCC on it?
the Arizona State Board of Directors for Urban School.
Oh, that's great. That's great.